More Canadians are waking up not knowing how they'll pay their debt on time. Insolvency filings are at their highest levels in nearly 2 decades. As Angie Seth explains, there could be even more financial distress to come.
Just staying alive in Canada has turned into a dystopian future, and there's no end in sight with this latest announcement from Carney. CBC was caught in a massive scandal, lying, deceiving, and entrapping Canadians. Imagine wasting over $1 billion a year only to have them pull a stunt like that. We'll take a look at that boondoggle. Nate is now saying the quiet part out loud and openly calling it for what it really is, fraud in the provincial Liberal nomination. Well, welcome to the team, Nate. And our king turned what was once a conspiracy theory into policy. And it's coming to Canada sooner than you think. My name is Elliot Daniel, and this is The Right Call. Like, share, subscribe, hype this video. Any interaction on this channel helps push the truth out and hopefully one day break that CBC-induced coma that so many Canadians are under. And if you're tired of that same old media and government BS and finally want some common sense commentary, well then smash that subscribe button because you're in the right place. Today we got some bad news coming out of Canada. So stick around, you don't want to miss this. But for now, Nate Erskine-Smith is turning into a conspiracy theorist.
Repeated and serious inconsistencies with respect to proof of ID and actions in the voting area that completely undermined any ballot secrecy. But don't take it from me. Our chief scrutineer, Andreas Katsouras, has 25 years of experience working with political campaigns and promoting democracy. He's trained, supported, or participated in election observer groups in Armenia, Belarus, Egypt, Tunisia, Venezuela, the West Bank, Gaza, Uganda, Yemen, Ukraine, and more. So here are his words, not mine.
Ooh, it's bad when you start comparing Canada's electoral process to countries like Uganda and Sudan. Did you say Sudan? Ukraine.
I'm Andreas Katsouras. There was an organized effort by Mr. Hafiz's campaign on Saturday to direct, monitor, and pressure people throughout the voting process, from the time they walked into the building to after they cast their ballots. We saw many cases of people hanging around in the voting area, telling voters what they should do. Multiple people took calls on speakerphone or video so they could get instructions right in the voting booth.
It sounds totally legitimate. You know, everyone knows you're supposed to have your phone in the voting booth.
There were many cases of people taking pictures of their ballots on their cell phones.
Side note, that's actually illegal to do during federal elections. I don't know during party nomination. Obviously, it's not overseen by the same election laws and standards, but still, shady.
When we pointed this out, party officials acknowledged this had been taking place throughout the day. In most of the world, this would be considered clear evidence of vote buying. Among the large number of temporary residents who voted, many couldn't tell us their address when asked and defaulted to documentation. An unusually high number of people claimed to have just lost their driver's license or just moved to the area.
Hold on here for a second. Why are non-citizens even allowed to vote for a party nomination? These people can't vote in an actual election. They don't have the right. It's only citizens who can vote. But we allow people to vote in party nominations, so they can't vote for the person during the elections, but they can choose who represents the riding in said election. To me, that is completely absurd. And by the way, this isn't limited to just the Liberals. The same thing happens in the Conservative Party, and I'm completely opposed to that.
The party provided a list of IDs it would accept, and then it broke its own rules. Dozens and dozens of asylum seekers voted with their refugee claimant documents. Others were able to prove their addresses using just an apartment lease.
Take a second here. Imagine going to another country as a refugee and thinking you should partake in the political process. What kind of self-respecting country? Again, this is not general elections, but still, what kind of self-respecting party allows such a thing? It defies logic, and I'm convinced that most Canadians don't support this at all.
Sometimes unsigned, and 2 of which listed voters under 18. Other non-standard forms of ID accepted included digital report cards and Amazon orders. One man even voted with a foreign visitor's visa.
Oh my God, I can't take this anymore. Nate is starting to wake up and asking the same questions that we've been asking now for years. Funny how it took him getting burned by his own party's policy. I cannot stress this enough. This is his own party's doing for him to start questioning it.
Ask yourself, why would dozens and dozens of people who are temporary residents showing up, not understanding the process, when they're asked for their address, they're not certain about what their address is, and then they're taking pictures of their ballot? ask yourself, why would they be doing that?
I don't know, Nate. Why would someone do that? I wonder. By the way, this is not the first time that the Liberals have been caught doing such shady things. I mean, let's just take a little trip down memory lane till last year, Mark Carney's very own leadership nomination, which was filled with controversy as well. I don't know, something as silly as disqualifying 2/3 of eligible Liberal voters for the leadership race that might have not wanted this complete outsider to all of a sudden become the freaking Prime Minister of Canada. I don't know. Now, without diving into conspiracy theories, it does bring into question whether our federal elections are indeed fair, secure, and properly administered. See, the beautiful thing about Canada is that our federal elections are overseen by Elections Canada. We've all heard of it, of course. And Elections Canada is an agency that derives its power and its oversight from the Parliament of Canada directly. Not the executive, not the cabinet, not the Privy Council, not the king. It's Parliament that appoints the chief elections officer, which means that all parties and all sitting MPs get to have a say in it and get to provide oversight for the agency. This on the surface does seem a great way to keep things open, fair, and transparent. I'm all for it. The issue for me arises when a government has been in power for a long time, say, I don't know, a decade, and on top of that has a majority in Parliament, thus giving them pretty much free reign and control over the administration of the agencies that derive from the Parliament, say, Elections Canada. Now, is it far-fetched to wonder how our federal elections are conducted when they are directly overseen by the Liberal Party, a party that, when in charge of their very own party nominations, appears to run shady, deceptive, and anti-democratic practices? I don't know, just food for thought. But what is far-fetched is seeing the massive scandal that just happened involving the CBC and a small media company called ATPN. Turns out the CBC is behind a program that attempts to entrap well-known Canadian personalities who are vocal skeptics of the entire residential schools narrative. For those who don't know, there's been this massive push to promote this seemingly false narrative over the last few years, that of mass unaliving of Indigenous kids who attended these residential schools in the past. And in spite of our government spending over $320 million investigating these claims and digging up supposed graves, not a single body was found or recovered. Well, apparently the truth doesn't matter to CBC. In an attempt to assassinate the character of outspoken critics, they created a fake media company and reached out to these vocal critics in order to interview them under the guise of a fake documentary. First, they went for Lindsay Shepherd. She's an author of children's book who promotes Sir John A. Macdonald, one of the founding fathers of Canada, but apparently he's controversial these days due to the ties to these residential schools. She said, "I found out recently that I was deceived by social activists in an elaborate scheme dating back to January. A production company with what I now know has a fake name and fake identities gave me a friendly interview about my book, A Day with Sir John A., back in February. They connected me with a fake company called Heritage Figures Canada with a fake website and hired me to perform consulting work for them. We had what I now know were fake meetings, fake documents, fake commercial shoot, fake prototype of a Sir John A collectible. Then, in a second filmed interview last week, they turned on me, and it was revealed to have been a setup in order to demonize Sir John A and smear me. To give you an idea, this is how they framed the entire thing. This is an email that she received asking her to partake in this. I'm developing a docuseries for national broadcast, and we'd like to discuss inviting you to take part in our episode focused on reclaiming the legacy of John A. Macdonald. We think your advocacy is critical in preventing the cultural amnesia that's endangering Canada right now, and that your voice would really enrich the program. Are you free to chat? Blah, blah, blah. Well, it turned out to be quite the opposite, ain't it? What they're actually trying to do is continually to propagate this cultural amnesia and rewriting of our history for their own political purpose and ideological purpose. And later on, after she was deceived, she reached out to CBC to validate, is this really them behind? And this is the email that she got from Catherine Wolfgang, who's the director of PR at CBC. Hi, Lindsay. We can confirm that this project is in early production for CBC Entertainment and ATPN. No details pertaining to the exhibition are confirmed at this time. What the hell is going on? Now, this did not just happen to Lindsay. No, they went after a bunch of people. For example, this also happened to Francis Widdowson, a professor who was unjustly fired for questioning the narrative of the residential schools. After being flown in and provided a hotel for the night, she caught on to the entire sting mid-interview.
What's this about? Tell me what this is about. Who are you? This is a pile of shoes that I believe to Aboriginal people came and dumped on the table. This seems to be a setup of some outfit that's doing a reality television show that wants to paint me, I guess, as some kind of a racist or something that they're going to post on social media. What's your name, sir?
Mike Smith.
Mike Smith?
Yeah, I think you got it exactly right. You've defined it precise. Well, I wouldn't say exactly right. This is social experiment.
Okay.
And it's on video. And I'm on video too, so we're on video together.
Yeah, we're on video together.
And if that wasn't bad enough as is, it turns out that they attempted the exact same thing on Dallas Brody, an MLA in BC and also the leader of One BC, the party. Luckily, her and her team sussed out that these guys were rats and declined to work alongside them. And I think federal MP Aaron Gunn outlined it perfectly in his post. I always thought the role of media was to hold the powerful accountable and to unapologetically seek the truth. But apparently, the CBC views it as trying to deceive and trick individual citizens and opposition members of parliament into bizarre and intentional traps. It's something you would expect from a university fraternity, not a taxpayer-funded broadcaster. I want answers. Why is the taxpayer-funded broadcaster contacted Canadians and members of parliament in disguise and trying to trick us into participating in a twisted social experiment in partnership with American leftists like Igor Vamos? Will taxpayers also have to cover the legal bills for CBC for the inevitable lawsuits they're about to face? Well, yes, of course, taxpayers will be on the hook for that. It is insane. This is your tax dollars that are being used against you if you so much as oppose the mainstream narrative. Like, we know that the CBC is pushing, promoting, and running cover for the Liberal Party, but now they're actively undermining private citizens and even elected members of parliament. CBC has officially turned into Canada's Pravda. I really hope this is the beginning of their demise.
Our true potential is to be the #1 exporter of LNG to Asia. Yet the country is behaving as if being good is good enough. Unacceptable. Germany's Chancellor Merz, India's Prime Minister Modi, and Japan's Prime Minister Takaishi have all expressed that they are hungry for Canada's resources. The urgency is only growing as energy supply is disrupted around the world. But the world is asking, can Canada deliver? With all this momentum, Canada has still fallen behind because Canada has been unable to attract a meaningful share of global investment, because capital goes where it's welcome, and for too long it has not felt welcome here, because Canada is no longer competing only within its borders or even just across North America. We are competing with the world under a very different set of expectations. So as a result, the US continues to lead in the race to meet global LNG demand, a race Canada should be winning with its proximity to Asia and abundant low-cost natural gas supply.
This is the CEO of TC Energy, a company that moves 30% of all natural gas, not in Canada, but in North America. So take it from him. He knows intimately the landscape of Canada's energy sector, and he's ringing the alarm bells. We could be, what I've been saying forever, so rich and so wealthy, but we can't get out of our own way. It's all self-inflicted.
The tone has completely changed. I think in the Trump administration, we have the most energy literate administration in the White House we've seen in many decades. We've already seen, through more reasonable and traditional application of regulations, acceleration of timing for permits. We had a permit we received on one of our projects in the Midwest here a couple of months ago, about 25% faster than we have over the last few years.
So here's the truth. The US is eating our lunch. You know, if we want to run with the whole elbows up narrative and that we have to divest from the US and be independent from them, then why wouldn't we exploit our natural resources and enable these companies to exploit them ASAP for our country to finally create jobs, make money, tax dollars, royalties, duties, you name it. But instead, we can't get out of our own ways. We make it increasingly complex with permitting, with consultations with Aboriginals, with land claims and oppositions from NGOs. It's just, we can't get out of our own way. So in the meantime, others are rising to the occasion, and the US is winning. And that's what makes no sense with the entire elbows up narrative, is that on one hand, we're told we need to be independent, but on the other hand, we do everything in our power not to be. And it's only about to get worse from here.
We begin with breaking news out of Ottawa. The federal and Alberta are closing in on a deal for industrial carbon pricing, a key Trudeau-era policy meant to drive down greenhouse gas emissions. The CBC's Karina Roman joins me live now from Ottawa with more on this. So Karina, what have we confirmed at this point?
Well, sources telling CBC News that Ottawa and Alberta are nearing a deal on carbon pricing for that province. The deal would see the effective carbon price increase to $130 a ton by 2040. Now, the effective price is like the real world cost, what actually hits a company's bottom line. And it takes into account exemptions and subsidies often offered by the province. Now, Alberta is presenting this plan, from what sources tell us, to the federal cabinet this morning. And if approved and signed off on by cabinet, that price would be far less stringent than what was set to happen under the Trudeau government.
Oh man, the media is spinning this as some sort of massive concession given to Alberta. But don't let it distract you from the actual truth here. The fact of the matter is this entire ordeal of carbon pricing and charging for its use is a huge stain on our competitiveness. We've been brainwashed into thinking this is somehow normal. Well, guess what? China doesn't do it. The US doesn't do it. No competitive economies do it. So why do we do it? We're not saving the planet. I'm sorry, dude. We're not. We already don't contribute meaningfully to anything that harms the planet. But on top of that, these effects don't actually reduce anything except for our bottom line. Our economy suffers, and the consumers as well. In a more dangerous and divided world, as Carney loves to remind us, the best protection that Canada could have is a rock-solid economy, a competitive economy. And as long as we continue to artificially underscore our economy by charging for carbon, thus making us less competitive, well, we are weakening our stance globally. And the repercussions for everyday Canadians are starting to become very real, because after a decade of ideologically driven, failed policy, well, pain is on the horizon, and it's rearing its ugly head.
More Canadians filed for insolvency in the first 3 months of this year than in any other quarter since the global financial crisis.
There's a growing concern more households are carrying too much debt and having difficulty paying their bills. Here's Pat Foran and Consumer Alert. Pat?
Thanks, Pauline and Sean. The latest numbers are concerning because they show many Canadians are feeling the strain of mounting debt, inflation, and increases in the cost of living. The three main factors hurting budgets the most are housing, car loans, and the rising cost of food. According to the Office of the Superintendent of Bankruptcy, more than 37,000 Canadians either filed a consumer proposal or declared bankruptcy during the first 3 months of this year. That's an increase of 8.5% over the same period in 2025.
That is such a huge increase. And it led me to want to compare, okay, what is it in the US? Same thing with job numbers, right? We're seeing our unemployment rate rise to the upper 6%, almost 7%, compared to the US mid 4%. We're losing jobs and shedding jobs left and right, whereas the US is adding hundreds of thousands of jobs every month. So I wanted to see, okay, insolvency rate, Canada versus the US. Well, it turns out that Canada has twice the amount of insolvency compared to the US. As of 2024, those are the most recent data I could find. Canada's insolvency rate stands at 4.2 for every 1,000 adult Canadians. That's roughly 420 per 100,000 Canadians. Meanwhile, the US, as early of 2026, stands anywhere between 139 to 285 bankruptcy filings for 100,000 people. That translates to Canada being 2 to 3 times higher than the US. And that brings me to a very interesting point that the left loves to bring up time and time again, that at least Canadians don't go bankrupt for medical services. Ha ha ha. Well, you're right. There's no such thing as, medical debt really in Canada. No Canadians going under because of medical debt. No. Us, it's just way worse. Far worse. In Canada, people go bankrupt for living, just trying to afford basic necessities. Our economic state is so bad, our unemployment so high, our wages so low, the cost of basic necessities so astronomical, and our taxes so onerous that people go bankrupt 2 to 3 times as much as the US while having no medical bankruptcy in the first place. Go figure. Bring that little piece of information next time some leftist loves to bring up that fact about Canada's medical system or the US medical system.
I'm not surprised by these numbers. We know that about half of Canadian households are living paycheck to paycheck, which means, they have no savings.
Yeah, he's right about that, because according to MNP, which is an accounting firm, 41% of Canadians report being $200 or less away from financial insolvency each month. This is not the state of a thriving economy. This is not, affordability is the best it's been in decades, Mark Carney. That's a lie. I'm sorry, dude. It's flat out lie.
Licensed insolvency trustee Doug Hoy says tariffs have been detrimental to Ontario and says increasing unemployment remains a concern.
I suspect that we will see a continued, perhaps gradual, but certainly increase in the number of personal insolvencies filed in Ontario for many months to come.
Hoyce recommends keeping debt levels low and to curb your expenses. Anyone facing financial hardships can seek the advice of a licensed insolvency trustee.
Oh my God, yes, guys, just cut your avocado toast and make coffee at home and all your financial problems are going to go away. This is exactly why they want to blame it on the tariff. And of course, it plays a huge part, but it actually supports my narrative. We need to make a deal with the US ASAP. We need to do business with the US. Canada's winning strategy economically and what made us prosperous has always been win by helping America win. As long as we do that, we'll be taken care of and we'll prosper together. It's a symbiotic relationship with the US, but we decide to spit on it and put our big boy pants on and say we don't need you and spit on the hand that effectively feeds us and refuse to play ball, and now people are starting to suffer. And it's sad because a lot of the pain is felt in Ontario, other provinces as well, but a lot in Ontario. And I mean, a little part of me can't help but say, well, you voted for it. After all, Ontario votes majoritively Liberal. So, hey, look, listen, elections have consequences. What do you want me to say?
That's King Charles arriving earlier this morning at the state opening of the British Parliament. He unveiled the government's agenda for the year ahead and began by speaking about the volatility threatening the UK as the conflict in the Middle East continues.
An increasingly dangerous and volatile world threatens the United Kingdom. With the conflict in the Middle East.
Did you catch that? Sounds a lot like Carney's in a more dangerous and divided world. Really, it makes you wonder, what's the connection here? Because it seems all the Westminster world leaders, Australia, the UK, Canada, New Zealand, they all seem to be speaking from the exact same script. Look, again, conspiratorial, I don't know. Anyways, in a scene that seems to be coming straight out of the Hunger Games, we got King Charles that announces digital ID.
My ministers will also proceed with the introduction of digital ID that will modernize how citizens interact with public services.
Well, what used to be a massive conspiracy theory is now apparently policy. The UK has faced significant backlash regarding plans to introduce their digital ID system, leading to a U-turn on making it mandatory for all workers. While the government plans to proceed with digital ID nonetheless within the Parliament to tackle illegal migration and streamline services, public concern, privacy worries, and a petition with over 1 million signatures caused a reversal on forced adoption. That was back in September of 2025. The government tried, and people pushed back hard, and they backed down. And by the way, the backlash comes from a myriad of people: privacy advocates, cybersecurity experts, opposition parties, civil liberties groups, large online competition and public campaigns. The people don't want this. And what they're warning about is surveillance/state overreach. We know that they love to do that. Centralization of databases becoming a hacking target. Governments can't keep data secure, apparently, from hackers, let alone foreign states. Mission creep, that's a real one. It starts with, this is only for your government benefits, and by the end, it's for everything in society. Exclusion of non-digital users, that's a good point too. There's a massive group of people that just don't want to deal with this stuff. They don't carry their phones on them all the time, or, maybe they're a little bit elderly, they're not as tech savvy, or maybe they just don't want to partake in it. Do you really need to have a digital device at all times on you to partake in society? And of course, the biggest concern that the ideas gradually become a de facto mandatory way of life. It's just, you can't carry anything else. You can't keep, a wallet on yourself or a piece of paper. No, it has to be tied to some digital wallet. But of course, 1 million signature was just enough to not scrap the entire project. It was just enough to postpone it, because when the government wants to do something, it'll happen come hell or high water. Because as you saw in the speech from the throne, it's making a comeback. In their latest attempt, the angle they're using is much more sophisticated. It's simpler. It's to prevent irregular migration and better track illegal immigrants, they say. But I can't help but realize the sheer irony of the statement and the playbook that's being deployed on the people. It's the same playbook every single time. It's the biggest trick the government has used over the world. Many countries have done that in order to usurp power from the people. And it's super simple. 1, manufacture a crisis from scratch. 2, allow that crisis to go on long enough that it starts undermining people's day-to-day lives, and people start asking, begging for a solution. 3, propose a solution, but make sure that the solution plays into the hand that you want to push. And 4, now with the support of the public, integrate this power grab solution that only gave you more power to fix a problem of your own doing. You know, the UK enabled, aided, and even promoted mass irregular migration. For years, they did nothing to stop it. And the people that pointed out that it was an issue in society at first were shunned, or even worse, silenced for speaking up. Because of course, the government had to let it get out of hand first, so that a wide majority of the population would beg for a solution. Now that the country is seeing an uprising against mass migration, they're finally addressing it, finally wanting to tackle the issue. But instead of shutting down the border and removing fraudulent migrants, as, common sense would dictate, the government is just pushing for more control and forcing people to have digital ID so that they say they can track the migrants. They already had the tools to do so. There was already border controls before. Mass migration was not a problem in the UK until 10 or 20 years ago. It was not. And all of a sudden it is. And the only way we can solve it is by pushing digital ID on everyone. Look, it works. These people, they're clever. Or I should say, the people maybe are just not realizing it. I don't know. Maybe they're both. Maybe they're clever and the people are just asleep. But I also think that the Anglo-Saxon is waking up. People are fed up. They're done with the establishment, the status quo. And it gave rise to a new party called Reform UK, which of course Wikipedia would refer to it as a right-wing populist and far-right political party in the UK. Sure. But it's led by Nigel Farage, the main figure behind the Brexit. Now, why am I bringing this up? Well, just this week, the UK had their council elections. Those are their local municipal elections, if you wish. And the Reform Party saw a massive gain of over 1,300 seats in municipal elections against the Labour, which is the ruling party right under the leftist, effectively, it's the left, losing over 1,200 seats. There is a complete shift happening in the UK. As a matter of fact, this is more than the UK, right? France is going right. The UK is going right. Sweden has gone right. Hungary is staying right. Poland has always been right. No, not always, but is definitely right. The US has gone right. Japan went massively to the right. There's a rejection happening of the left and its ideologies. Over the last decade, identity politics, ESG, DEI, Green New Deals, globalism, it's all being rejected en masse by the people of the West. The pendulum is swinging. And it's happening in Canada too. Don't be demoralized here. Because if you look at the last elections of 2025, more people voted Conservative than at any other point in the history of Canada. Over 8 million people voted for the Conservative Party. But the big issue with Canada's political system is the first past the post system, which enables the Liberal to be considerably more efficient at converting a vote into a seat in Parliament. That's the problem. On this spreadsheet, you can see all the past election results and where a party gained in percentage more seats in terms of representation than the amount of popular vote they received. And although the Conservative Party has received a few more percentage points of seats compared to the popular vote result, 2.5%, 3.9%, 1.4%, 1.4%, in the last election, 2025, it received effectively a perfect near match of popular vote to seats at 0.67%. The problem is the Liberals, because time and time again, year after year, they get a considerable higher proportion of seats compared to the votes they gather. They get an overrepresentation. Like, for example, in 2015, they received nearly 15% more seats than the amount of votes they gathered. 2019, it was 13.3%. 2021, it was, again, almost 15%. And in the last election, it was 5.5%. The real losers in all that, by the way, is the NDP, that consistently get less seats than the votes they get. The Bloc is pretty much as good with parity as you can get. The Greens, though, oh my God, you guys are getting crushed. Now, if you've enjoyed this report and see some value in it, well, you can get involved and help by sharing, commenting, liking, subbing, all of the good stuff. And if you want to take it a step further, I have a Patreon. The link is in the description. It's $8 a month, and your support enables me to just spend more time doing this and to pump out more reports, more research, more facts, more truth. All help is greatly appreciated. In the meantime, if you want to understand a little bit better the kerfuffle that happened with the Liberal provincial nomination, I made an entire video, click right here. I also break down this woke speech that Carney had the other day. It won't help our unemployment rate. But for the time being, there won't be a report for the next few days. I got to fly to Toronto. I've been invited to go record a show on an amazing podcast. I'll talk more about it next report. But for the time being, my name is Elliot Daniel, and I'll see you guys next week.